Hi kids, welcome to Cooking with Mrs. B. Today we're going to make a very yummy pudding. So here's our grocery list. We need whole milk, and I do insist on whole milk because it'll make your pudding creamy. If you use skim milk, it's just not going to thicken the way it should. Next is sugar, not that much sugar, but you need sugar. Cornstarch, and that's your basic pudding starter. For our topping, we're going to use orange juice, and we're also going to use a little bit of rose water. It's much better to have orange water, but I couldn't find that this time, so we'll use some rose water. Now this pudding is called Balooza, and it's popular throughout Palestine and most likely parts of Syria. So let's get started. I would rate this recipe probably a medium level because you do have to measure and you can burn the puddings. You have to be very careful with that. You need some kind of pot, and you must have a wooden spoon. There's a little trick I'm going to show you with the pudding. It needs to be a wooden spoon. You need whatever serving dishes you're going to use for the pudding. These are nice small bowls, and I like to measure things out. Some sort of measuring thing to measure how much liquid you can put in your pudding. And then I also like a half cup to help me scoop with, and I need a fork, where is it, over here, to stir the cornstarch because it is very thick. Okay, first step is you want to fill with water your bowl about 3/4 up or a little less, maybe even half, and then pour it into your measuring container to see how much water that is. So let's do that. Okay, that came out to about 2/3 for one of those bowls. I'm actually going to make 5 bowls of pudding. So for some fancy math, I know I should do this in my head, but 2/3, you do 2 divided by 3. 2 divided by 3 is going to be 0.666, okay. And then I'm doing 5 bowls of pudding, so take that times 5. And I will need 3 1/3 cups of milk. Okay, so do your math. There's my 3 1/3 cup of milk on medium heat. By the way, make sure you give your cat about a tablespoon of milk or she won't shut up. Right, Emma? All right. Let's have some sugar, shall we? I will put about 2 spoons for every cup, and later I'll taste it if I want more sugar. I mean, it's a dessert, right? How many was that? 3. Are you guys counting? 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and I'm going to stir it with a wooden spoon, and then we'll watch for a little bit of steam. Okay. Next step is I took some cornstarch, about 1/4 cup there. I'm going to add a little bit of water, just enough to make it the consistency of glue. I stirred this down with the fork, and maybe it's not exactly the consistency of glue, but it's pretty thick. I put about 5 spoons in there. Just want you to see how it coats the sides like that. It's a little bit on the thick side. And my pudding was already beginning to steam, so I did turn it down. You have to be so careful you don't burn this. So I backed it off the medium. And let me put her back on the flame. And then you just stir your cornstarch slurry right in here. And you see how very loose this milk is. I mean, it's almost like water. When it starts to thicken up, it will coat the back of the spoon even more than that. And that's why the wooden spoon helps tell you when it's thick enough to pull from the heat, because you never want to overcook pudding. So I need both hands. Let me dump that in there. Because that water mixture was cool, I put us back on medium heat. And here is where you need to stir kind of consistently, going around and sometimes back and forth, getting all of the areas so as not to get lumps in your pudding. By the way, this is also how you make gravy, more or less. That's with a butter and flour and then some broth, but that's another lesson. It's really a great idea to know how to cook gravy. I think I will show that in another. This pudding is so nice. It's so rich, very creamy. And when I get it off the heat, I'd encourage you to taste it to see if it's sweet enough, if it's how you like it. By the way, if you would like at this point to make it chocolate pudding, you could add cocoa to it, or even some syrup. Just back off the sugar when you sprinkle sugar in it. But this is essentially a basic pudding. This may take 5 minutes. This is the patient part. So let me time elapse this. It's been probably 3 minutes. Can you see that nice steam coming off? You never want to boil this. And I backed off the heat a little more because you boil it, you burn it. Okay. Do you see how it's thicker now? And sometimes if you throw the spoon back quickly, you can even see the bottom of the pan, and it'll make a nice whisk, whisk sound. There. See how now that's coating the spoon? See how you got a nice shine going on that wooden spoon? That means it's about done. Now, it will continue to thicken up in the fridge, and I don't like a super gooey thick pudding, so this is about the right consistency for me. If you decide you want it thicker, then you got to do the starch thing and the cold water, stir it with a fork again. Never dump straight starch in here or it will completely be lumps. You can never do that. Just starch in there, mix with water, dump back in. But I think this is thick enough. See those nice ripples it's making? Oh, there's the sound. Yeah. And we're definitely got a coated spoon. I'm going to pull it off the heat. Flip this off and we will continue to the next part. Here's where I'm going to add about a tablespoon of the rose water to give it a nice little exotic flavor. So this is something a little different. Stir that in real good. You don't add that rose water early because the flavor can cook out. So you add it last. The same thing would be with vanilla. If you want to turn this into vanilla pudding, put again, probably a tablespoon of vanilla in there.
What's vanilla?
Look at that. My math worked. Now this has to refrigerate. Okay, next we're ready to make the topping of the pudding. And we're just going to dump the whole thing in. I don't measure this one because if I have leftover orange topping, I just eat it. Let's see, how much sugar? I think at least 5 spoons. This is the sweetest part of it. It's up to you. You can taste, but 4 or 5, maybe 6. So let's get that going on. Okay, it's steaming. We're going to do our slurry with the cornstarch again. Probably just as much or just a little less because this needs to be thicker. Because it's not milk, it's not going to thicken up as fast. So let's get a nice stir going on here. Okay. And this will be done in 2-3 minutes. Ooh, see how thick that is already? Actually, that did thicken up quite fast. Let's take it off the heat. Okay, next I'm taking a spoon and I'm doling this out on top of the pudding. I had that pudding sit in the fridge for about an hour so that this will sit nice on top. Kind of looks like an egg, doesn't it? So I'm going to keep adding until it's all done. Garnish with mint leaves and put back in the fridge. Some people like to put crushed pistachios on here too, but I just like the creaminess of this pudding. It's really delightful. By the way, I added some honey in with the lemon before with the orange mix before I put it on top, just for a little extra flavor because I don't have the orange water. But anyway, that's a pretty popular Syrian Palestinian dish called Balooza pudding. Thanks for watching.